Hey there, I'm Jamey from Stonemaier Games, and today I'm here to talk about my favorite mechanism in the game Bites. So Bites is this charming game that looks a little bit like deep sea adventure here. I got to share my screen here so you can see it. Here is what it looks like right over here. So deep sea adventure. So this isn't deep sea adventure, but it looks kind of like it in that you have all these tiles that you've randomly scattered throughout this board where you have a bunch of tokens at the beginning, these ant tokens at the beginning, and you have an ant hill at the end, and players are trying to move these ants all the way to the ant hill. When the last ant is on the ant hill, the game ends. However, beyond that, it isn't really like deep sea adventure at all. Um, Especially since you are not any one specific ant. You control any ant at any time. So on your turn, you'll select one ant, doesn't matter which ant it is, and you will move it forward to the next space that matches the color of that ant. So there's a little bit of candy land in here, actually. Um, and when you do that, so say I move this red ant forward right over here, I then have to take one of the tiles in the front or the back of that ant. So I'm claiming this tile or this tile, one of these tokens. And these are worth points at the end of the game based on when the red ant ends up on the anthill. So more points, or actually not the red ant, but the colors of ants that match these tokens when that ant ends up on the anthill, that determines the scoring for those types of tiles. The hook of the game, though, and let's see if I can find a photo here. The really clever hook, in my opinion. So that's the very simple overlay of how the game works. That's pretty much all you need to know to play the game. However, in addition to that, the rules of the game actually change every time you play. Hopefully, I can find a photo here on Board Game Geek. Let's see if I can find one. So what I'm referring to are the 4 different types of cards in the game. There are 4 different types of cards. Let's see if maybe some of them are here. Yeah, you can see them right here. Here we go. So there are 4 different types of cards. You can see the different color backgrounds. And at the beginning of the game, you'll shuffle each of those stacks and you'll randomly select one of them. And that will determine really the rules of the game, the rules beyond the rules that I've already explained. They all have little hooks to it. So for example, in our game, we had a special token that was somewhere in the row, these gold tokens that you could collect. And if you collected one of those gold tokens, they were worth 5 points. There are also just little hooks, different categories of rules, and you're always playing with a mix of 4 different rules. I thought this was really clever. They took a game that would have been just fine for a few plays if you had just played it with a very basic rules with nothing else on top of it, and they made it a highly replayable game, especially given its short length, by adding this vast combination of rules that you can come out with. You can have a very different game from one session to the next based on these rules, because they really do change the game quite a bit. Like we played with a standard starter card that had us what was the rule? Oh, it said when an ant arrives at the anthill, it goes to the highest point spot. But there are other cards that don't have that happen. So you might want to have the slowest ant to the anthill might end up scoring the most for the tiles of that color that you've collected. I think this is really clever. Very, again, very basic rules to the game with these added rules, enhancing the game and adding a lot of replayability to it. So that is my favorite mechanism in Bites, these variable rule cards that are in play every time you play Bites. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below if you've played it or if you've played a game similar to this with a bunch of different combinations of rules that can come into play every time you try to play the game. That is Bites.